Good evening, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Think I'm on time tonight, so that's a nice plus. I'm going to pop the chat out here so I get a better chance at actually reading through it correctly. I know there's a lot of folks on here. Really great to see you guys here already. Give me just a few minutes before you start asking questions. Questions will be for tomorrow night. We keep that pretty limited on post games. I'm going to go through my notes, tell you what I saw, tell you what was important, and we'll talk about what's coming. I do scan through the comments on here, so I will pay attention, but it won't be as though I'm looking for questions. So tomorrow night's show will be at 7 Arrowhead time. For anybody that's new in the chat, come back then. That's when we go through your questions one by one, and I try to get to all of them. We usually spend about an hour, so it's a good time. What's up, Gary? See all you guys in here. Andy Anderson, Oregon Chiefs fan, a lot of guys in here. Hope that you enjoyed that game. It was not exactly what I had expected in the snow. Threw me off a little bit, I have to say. But, you get happy presents sometimes. And if you guys are looking for presents, you can always support the channel. You want to grab any of those shirts or whatever, you can grab those in each of the videos. There's different ones. You can support the chat right here with the super chats or the super stickers. They're that little dollar sign at the bottom of the chat, so feel free with that. If you do, remind me, and I'll answer your question tomorrow night for that. Big takeaway from today is that it didn't really matter that the Chiefs were playing in snow. It mattered a lot less than I expected it to. And let me crack this before we get going. Tonight's beer, feeling festive. It's an isolation ale from Odell. It's not really a winter beer, but it's something similar. And so this beer actually matches what the day looked like in Kansas City. I hope you guys all traveled safely. I know there were a lot of delays and some accidents. I know most of my family stayed home, didn't bother even going out. So the fact that the Chiefs got that kind of play done in that kind of weather is a testament to their preparation and the fact that we try, that they try as hard as we tried to pay attention to them, they try to put something good up for you guys. So the biggest thing was Pat Mahomes' hand looks absolutely fine. I was a little bit worried about that. Not concerned, just thought, this was, especially with the weather, it would be a good inclination to just kind of take it easy, not really pressure him much. I thought that he really displayed that he is 100% with his hand. We can talk about the rest of his play, but first I want to mention, everybody say hi to Aaron Morrow. You know him already, but he is the first official mod for the channel. He'll be in here on the chats whenever he's available, and helps me and honestly for any of the haters that show up from the other teams when we try to do this live. So I appreciate your efforts, Aaron. I know we haven't had a chance to catch up. Hit me on Twitter and we'll get connected so we can go over a couple of things this week. For the rest of you guys, give Aaron a thumbs up. He's doing this out of the kindness of his heart, and I appreciate it. So that said, the hand's one thing for Pat, but I felt like he really looked more decisive, more aggressive with what he was doing, which is really just boggling why he hasn't done that in the last few games, especially. But Jeremy Jones, thanks. I saw your comment. I don't want to skip that. Whatever it was kind of a switch. I think he understood that he was a little passive the last couple of weeks, and that maybe that led to some of the problems moving the ball, because he was very, very aggressive on time. He looked more like he did at the beginning of the season today in the middle of a snowstorm than he did last week in what was not warm, but it wasn't coming down on you in Foxborough. So that was a good sign. You're the man, Kenny. I like that one too. So, hey, you got to take it. Thanks for the donation, bud. And hit your question early tomorrow. I'll get you set up early. That said, it's not just Mahomes. I thought his protection started out pretty good, which I actually feel is a bigger deal than most make of it, because when you're talking about being an offensive lineman and moving backward, not being able to see. Now, your footing isn't quite as assured as it is when you're running straight ahead. You know what I mean? You know where you're going, and you've seen the ground, right? You've seen it coming. When you're just backing up into a back a drop back, that especially for the tackles, when you're kick stepping back there, you have sometimes you have a 45, sometimes you have a wider angle with your back foot, and placing it can sometimes be difficult, especially when you're not seeing where that foot's going. So I was pretty impressed with the way that they pass blocked early. Now, Wiley ended up having some problems. I know he did turn the ankle, and I don't know if maybe that was a growing injury, if that was just one play. He may have tweaked it earlier that caused some of his struggles in blocking, and then really got it messed up later. We'll see what happens with that long term. He didn't practice for a good bit this last week, and so I think that's kind of key to see where he's at. Luckily, they have Wiz, and you guys know how I feel about Wiz. I think he should be starting, but if he's not going to, he is certainly a premier backup at that position for this team. And I think that this is great for them overall as a team. But to put their best foot forward, I think they still have to consider, really what is the best thing for the best five to play. And that's something that Andy's always been 100% for, is the best five should be playing. So that's really what it comes down to for me. At the end of the day, put your best five out there to begin with, and it's going to be what it is. I think it gives you the best chance to get off to a good start. And I think we all know how well they play with a lead, with a good start. It helps the defense. The defense played well today. They bottled up the run, which in snow like this, again, the offense has the advantage in that situation, playing downhill, especially in the pass game, because the DBs are backing up, much like the offensive linemen are on the other side. We don't have specifics on Okafor. I'll get to him, Van, though, here in a little bit. So, again, it comes back to what are you able to do? And I felt like the defense stopped the run when they had to. Noah Fant got a couple of plays. Sutton got his plays. I really do feel like Sutton's going to be the number 2 receiver in the AFC West next season. I think he's surpassing what Keenan Allen can do. Keenan Allen in this game doesn't do what Cameron or Cortland Sutton did today, in my opinion. That's just what it is. Players have different tendencies. They have different capabilities in different conditions, and I think Sutton showed you a lot. I like the kid, and I think he's somebody the Chiefs are going to have to contend with for a while, as is Drew Lock, who I thought did some good things today, threw a couple of nice balls. But you saw both he and Mahomes both have some that came out of their hands strangely, just because the ball looked wet at times. From what I understand, it was a heavy snow. So, that makes a lot of sense. Overall, I think the secondary looks like it's playing pretty good. I'm still, Ward's going to be up and down. Like I told you, I thought Breland, if he would have got his hands on that pick, would have been great. Tyrann Mathieu had a couple of picks not go his way. But I was encouraged with this. You can chalk all that up to negatives if you really want to harp on somebody. But the interesting thing for me was to see Mathieu almost to get that pick, have it not go, and then have Juan Thornhill come right back around and grab one himself. I thought that was good. The ball was underthrown. He was in the right position. So if he puts that right on Fant, I think Juan still has a play to make on it, but I'm not sure that he gets an interception. That said, I think the rookie's making an impact. I don't think they had to play as heavy this game. I'll be interested to see what the number of snaps for the base defense was. We'll tabulate that up. I've got some new guys that are looking to come on to help Rogue Analytics, to help the channel some in terms of different content ideas, different things. And we'll see what we can get done in some of the more advanced metrics. Most of my analytics are draft related. They're about athleticism, so they come out later in the year. But we'll see if we can get you some of that advanced stuff, because trending at the very least is important to look at as an analysis. This doesn't have to be, these super complex formulas like EPA and WAR and those kind of things that really look to quantify the way the game is played rather than tendencies within the game. So we're not going to get that deep, but they do show that what you got today was not playing as much man, at least by my not as much base, by my eye, but still were able to control the run. I think it was little over 4 yards. It might have been 4.4 for Philip Lindsay. but a low total. They chose to throw still because they weren't getting the kind of gains on the ground that the Broncos wanted, and that's because of the Chiefs' defense. I saw Saunders out there plenty. I saw Pennell plenty. I didn't see Ragland a ton. We'll see what the snap counts are when they come in. But I feel like that was down a little bit, but it didn't seem to hurt them. So that's great. In this particular weather, it's all kind of a boil it down a little bit and do what you do well and get to where you can affect the other team and keep them from doing what they want to do. Ranting Chubster, appreciate the donation. Not really taking a ton of questions today, but I will say this. Depending on how long Okafor's out, it is a pec injury. I don't know if it's torn yet. I haven't seen that announcement for sure. So, yes, I would put in a claim for Suggs, if nothing more than to keep him away from Baltimore, because you will have to play them if you survive the divisional round. So, for sure, I would put in a claim for Terrell Suggs. I don't even care if he reports. If he does, I think he would be a boon to helping with Okafor out. If he chooses to report, I don't know that he will. I can understand him wanting to go back to Baltimore or not at all. You know, that's the player's choice, and I get that. Case K, I can see where you're coming from about Jenkins, especially because I think he brings more maturity and experience to the cornerback room, and I think that will help Charvarius Ward, because you still see Ward making some mistakes that I don't think he should be making. Still not getting turned around, not understanding where the ball is, and that seems to be the basic problem overall. But I don't think anybody's going to claim Jenkins, so I think he's going to be a free agent, and you just might get him in the end anyway. It's going to be down to whether Spags wants him and feels he can use him a way that actually helps. So that said, the safeties, the teams kind of flipped. I thought you had better play from the corners last year, and the safeties were kind of wanting. Now it's the opposite. So you got to find a happy medium. I'm going to look more closely at Kendall Fuller snaps this week. I saw him blitz a couple times. I saw him at safety a couple of times. I like him being used in a similar way to Mathieu in moving them around, getting different matchups, keeping it unpredictable. And I think that helps the defense overall, probably more than anything else. That's definitely something that they have to keep up. And I think he keeps the thing going. So what's up, Jeremy Green? Yeah, I'm just one for now. Okay. Other topics. Frank Clark didn't play a ton of downs. This is why the Okafor Suggs thing is going to be important. I thought he was productive when he was in there. He looks more explosive. It came out after the game. I think it was James Palmer from NFL Network that let everybody know that Frank's now lost somewhere up around 20 pounds. That's really significant. And while that's dangerous in terms of hydration, energy, that kind of thing, being able to be a full-time player again in the playoffs, which I think you would hope for. But in the short term, I think it's made him more explosive. I think playing at the lighter weight is helping him in the pass rush. And I don't know from what I saw live today that it hurt Frank in any way against the run. So if that's true, and he is just as effective against the run, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. I said it on the podcast that'll be up later tonight too, that we already taped. That's explosive aspect of Frank's game that he doesn't rely on. He's more of a power rusher, and he's definitely more well-rounded. I think Frank's speed rush is a little quicker than Justin Houston's, but they are similar players in that power is their strength, the thing they do best, but they are well-rounded, and I think that's important. But being a little bit lighter, I think, will help him in the pass rush. And I think when you have guys like Noddy and Saunders and Pennell and possibly the return of Xavier Williams, I think that lessens the load that you have to put on Frank in the run game, because he's going to have more support inside. And yes, teams can just start running to the outside on purpose. But again, that speed getting to the edge, if he's not having to fight through setting the edge, I think he's going to be okay. So overall, we'll see what happens with his weight. According to Palmer, he does feel like the specialist that he saw this week, he went and visited, and he was in a hospital again this week. He feels like they've gotten it figured out more. And what Palmer's report said that it was related to an appendectomy that he had previously. Don't know when that was. I haven't had a chance to research that. So that could certainly be a complication. That's specific, and that's tough. that could be, life-threatening that outside of football. So you got to take care of that. Anything that ruptures, or has a tendency to. If you ever heard of anybody rupturing their appendix, that's something that leads to a significant illness. You can get all kinds of complications from that. So it needs to be taken seriously, and I think that's helping. The Okafor loss is tough. And I want to say this in particular. Enjoying the idea of Terrell Suggs coming for a pass rush option doesn't mean that I or anyone else is unhappy with what Tano Passanio is doing, because Tano Passanio is getting better. He is making an impact. He is really starting to take the penetration that we saw earlier in the season and wrap it in towards pressures on the quarterback. I feel like that's what he's becoming. That doesn't mean that he's ready to be a 3-down player all the time, but if he has a little sub help, if it were something like Suggs is required off the waiver wire, Suggs comes in on 3rd down in some passing situations, or could play even on 2nd down for him, give him a little bit of a breather. Again, a rotation, that's what they've lost at defensive end. And I just don't want anybody thinking that I'm counting Tano out. And I will say this as well. I have to look at his snaps specifically, but Damone Harris has shown us the pass rush, the speed rush, because that's how he's built. That's what he does. But I thought he put in some good reps today too. So when he flashed on my screen, it was for good reasons. I wasn't watching him in particular, but I do feel like it goes a decent way towards giving them another option in the rotation, especially if they don't have Alex Okafor. And who's from Como? Samson, welcome. I live up in the mountains, not far up 285 from there. So just wanted to say hi because I saw that in the chat real quick. Who else? On the defensive side, I thought Naughty played fine. I thought he and Saunders really look like they can be a good combination of the future inside. I do believe you'll get better pass rush from Saunders next year after a year. I do think he needs to get in the strength conditioning program for another year. If he can put a little bit more man strength behind there, I think he's going to be great. Thank you, Jake. Jake said that Frank Clark's appendix surgery was in 2017. So that's important. On the offensive side, I thought LDT looked better today. I know he talked about playing better today, so it's definitely something they're aware of. And I want to celebrate a little bit of the reemergence of Sammy Watkins, because as we talked about last week, Sammy's been a little bit absent, and I felt like not only did Sammy make better use of his targets when he did make catches, although I don't like the way he carried the ball. I don't know what he and Demarcus Robinson been hanging out with Shady too much or what's going on there, but I don't like it. But I felt like beyond that, I felt like Mahomes was making a more concerted effort to get him into the game, not just looking at Hill and Kelsey. And I think we talked about that last week. I think that's what has to happen in order for them to take the next step. They have to be more well-rounded. I'm okay with it being Hill, Kelsey, Watkins, and Mecole being, a target of opportunity when he does get great matchups, or it just turns out that he beats somebody badly, because that will happen. I think Mecole's, or is it Mecole or Mecole? Different people pronounce it different ways. I've heard it the same. I'm going to go with however it is. When I hear his mother say his name, then I'll know exactly how to say it. Until then, I don't think you have to force feed him. I think him being a target of opportunity when he has a coverage that he's really great at breaking, or he runs a specifically great route, no problem. Watkins' contract is difficult to see continuing to the future, so you can't count on that. So I say put him as the number 3. Like, look to him as the 3rd target right now, because you have him and you can use him. And I think he gains good yards after the catch. And I think that rounds out the offense and makes it more difficult for them to pull double coverage towards Tyreek and even Travis Kelce. Even though some of Sammy's routes are going to be run inside. You saw him run a slant today to great effect. That was one of his best catches today. They have to do that every game, in my opinion. Sammy should get a couple of slants every single game until they literally line up and take it away from him. So that's all I got. Alan Clayton, appreciate the comment. I don't know anything about that. So can't really tell you. Sammy Sammy gives them that third option, but I think what you saw today is it doesn't take away from what they do with the other guys. And that's really what the key is. And then when you have Mecole over the top. Shady. I thought he had some good runs. I thought he carried the ball a little loosely for my thoughts as well. But I will say this. I don't see the explosion from Spencer. And I like Spencer Ware. But I think he's going to be on this roster for a bit because he blocks like an offensive lineman back there. And I think that's critical. I think as you get into the playoffs, the Chiefs are really going to enjoy that and see that as an imperative. So while they could make a move, and maybe they have to, I don't know that that's the thing they're going to do first. I feel like they're going to keep him around for his pass protection to keep Mahomes upright, and I'm more than happy with that. I think that's critical. But I think that the best runner today was Darwin Thompson. And I'll say this was way more so than the last game that he got significant carries where he actually closed the game out as the back. I thought that looked fine, but that was a team that was beaten, and I felt like they had let down. He ground out yards against the Broncos. The Broncos were still fired up, and they were still trying it. They were still playing hard. And I felt like some of the moves inside, particularly inside the tackles, I feel like he was more effective than the other backs today. And I think that's a sign of his ability to change direction. His jump cuts inside the tackles, I think, are really a positive for him. So I'm perfectly okay if they generally emphasize Shady, and when Damian Williams gets back, I'm okay if they emphasize those guys playing outside and let Darwin run in between the tackles. I think his size is actually an advantage playing in between the tackles. And when he did play that game, I did in the film room, I showed you guys how he can shift his body, turn his shoulders a little bit, where the offensive linemen don't have to sustain their blocks so much. And so he ends up getting holes that are useful for him that maybe aren't useful for everybody else. So I think he is the back in there. I think he might do okay in short yardage as well. I do want to see them go big. As an extra lineman, but I feel like Thompson earned his stripes today. And for the first time, I felt like that was legit. So you're right, Jeremy. They didn't use the pitch today, and I'm okay with that today in this particular weather because a pitch can always go backwards. And if you're just a hair off in the angle, it can be a backwards pitch, and then everything can go south really, really fast. So and Billy, I agree. I would like to see them have a power back. I don't think that's what Spencer is right now. I know he had that one run the first game he was back, and that looked good, but I haven't seen anything else from it. So I think they miss Darryl a little bit, and it's too bad he had to go on IR, but that's the situation you find yourselves in. They also have McGuire there on the practice squad, so there's an option back there. Offensively, defensively, I think they were good. Special teams seemed to lock it down a little bit better today. There was one time where I think Hardman should have just let a kick go that he ended up grabbing right on the sideline, and if he had muffed it there, it would have been an easy touchdown for the other team. So I didn't like that, but I thought Colquitt played well. I thought they settled down on special teams, and that's important. I thought the coaching staffs came in with a game plan that was still aggressive enough to get the win in a convincing fashion, but wasn't like over the top risky. I would have run a little bit more if it were me, but it is what it is. Joe Schmo, you're not the first person to ask me that. I can try to do that. I just don't have a good way to do it yet because this is live streamed. This doesn't go into my camera or anything. I don't have a good way to get the recording without getting the quality way down. I am looking into some services so that these would take this video and repost it onto a podcast. So I'm looking at that, and I'll probably just put all the content together on one RGR podcast. That will be the NFL stuff that I do in the off season, as well as all the Chief stuff, maybe even the beer stuff. If you guys are into craft beer, please check that out. It's a much slower starting series of podcasts on the other channel, but it's going to be interesting, and I think it's got some legs. So I'd love it if you guys would give me some feedback on there, even if you're not home brewers yourselves. That said, grab a t-shirt if you want to support the channel. Check back tomorrow night for the Q&A session. We'll start at 7 Central at Arrowhead time. You can drop donations in there. You can ask your questions, whole 9 yards. We go a lot longer than this post game. I just tried to go through my notes and what I saw on these, just so that I'm not stepping out of bounds or saying things until I've had a chance to rewatch the game and see the statistics, get the grades, hopefully, from PFF as well, and get some of those. So I'll have more information for you tomorrow. We'll continue with the podcast. We're going strong on there. If you're a podcast listener, if you would jump on iTunes and leave us a review, let us know what you think. That would really help. We're trying to stay ahead of Therese and the Yahoo one, to tell you the truth, because they're kicking butt. And if you guys are into podcasts and you don't listen to Therese and the Yahoo NFL Sports podcast, definitely do that. I appreciate all you guys spending some time. I know it's cold out there. It's cold here too, and I'm going to go grab some dinner. So I appreciate it. I'll see you back here tomorrow at 7 p.m. and have a good night.